another council meeting. The meeting is now called to order. Let us bow our heads for a word of prayer. This evening, our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, honor, and praise. We thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. And as we, as a council, come before you to do business for the city, Lord, we ask that you would have your way and be with us and bless us and help us to make the right decisions and conduct business in an orderly manner. For this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name, I pray. And we all say amen.
Amen.
Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
No respect. Called somehow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. You hold that one for me. You don't have to, no, just hold it.
Let's all put our cell phones on silent, please. And I'd like to say, welcome to another council meeting. And we have before us the minutes from the August 3rd council meeting. Have everybody had a chance to review them?
There's where you go. That's what you got right there.
Yes, ma'am, I've read mine.
Are there any corrections? I've read them and I found a few myself. And mine would be too enormous to just point them out, being that they're many in number. So I just like to say that they are mainly grammatical errors, more so than word. It's a subject verb agreement that is not adding up. So I'd just like to state that for the record from the mayor's perspective. Does anybody else have any corrections?
The only thing I have would be a little, like you said, a little grammar.
Okay, keep in mind that I typed it just like y'all said it, so if it's grammar problems, y'all said it.
And it may be the way you're hearing it, but I like to state for the record that in all of my speaking, I use subject-verb agreement. And in a lot of this, it does not have it would say, it will not give correctly the statement that I made. Now, if we need to go through that, council, if y'all feel up to it, but nevertheless, it would perhaps take all night to sit here and correct all of that. But if you all have the time and wanna go through it, because I know,
I think that since we brought it to the attention, then we might just go through it, but everybody has a copy of their minutes.
you all, council, are we all in agreement that everybody has a copy?
You do?
Right. Would you care to start, Councilwoman Walker?
Nobody has any other, changes, I make a motion we adopt them as presented.
Second.
Before that was, stated, I said that I have some corrections that I'd like to make.
But you said you were going to bypass it and not do it because it's gonna take too long.
Well, that I did say, but I asked Councilwoman Cooper, did she wanna go first?
Oh, no, I just said that since it's in the minutes that we found some that it will take a long time, is that I suggest that we go on.
Okay.
But that was what you
Okay, so is that what you were stating,
Yes,
Councilman
ma'am.
Edie? Okay. Well, again, I would, agree to that. So motion has been made and second. All in favor of us accepting these minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, next we have the minutes of the executive session. Review, do I have a motion to accept the executive session minutes?
I make that motion.
First, motion has been made, second. Any discussion? If not, let me hear the word aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carried.
Okay, I see that, this is mayor notes, but before we go further, I see that we have on the, agenda, and I set the agenda prior to my leaving, and, this was supposed to come by me before we do anything, and it's not been brought before me, and I've not had a chance to review, item B under old business, and, item number 8 under new business. So I would, until I have a chance to review that, I'm gonna state that I'm gonna move that off the agenda, and, until I get further information. Thank you. So under the mayor's notes, just like to say that, we had a chance to go down to the, conference at Jackal Island to attend the training there, and we learned a great deal, and that was expanded on and expounded on, how to, have good government and deal with, matters of the city. So Councilwoman, Whipple, would you like to expound and say what, you gained from the conference? Start with you as well as Councilwoman Todd.
In our first class, we talked about, revitalizing neighborhoods, and everyone is aware that right here, we have a lot of, old vacant buildings, and it would be good to see those buildings come back alive again, that we could bring something into the city of Gordon. And I thought that was a great experience. And then we talked about, on our second day, we talked about, plans, that, were, audits that we could, instead of, doing things just with our city, we could do things with other cities and invite them in and make our community grow as well. So those are two of the things that I really thought was very important.
Thank you so much. What about you, Councilwoman Toad?
Being over in the same place, to the same thing.
Did you have anything you would like to expound on, to say that you learned? Okay. All right, under the, no further notes under the mayor's notes, I'd just like to say that we'll move further along to the old business. And we have the audit report. Are they here to present tonight?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are y'all?
Wonderful, thank you.
I appreciate you having us here. Just to let you know, my name's Miller Edwards. I'm with Malden Jenkins. We also have Mark Hardison, Clifton Whitford, Hardison and Parker, and Mitch Greer, who also works with me here today. So if there's any kind of question to come up, I'll quickly summon one of those two up here in case anything needs to be addressed with you that maybe they have a better answer than I do. There was a little,
Could I interject something? I don't know how long this will take, but let me deviate. Excuse me, just have a seat. We have citizens to be heard. I'd like to go ahead and hear from them. Just deviate a little, please. Ms. Judy Bryan, is she available? Okay.
Just gonna take my hand out papers.
Sure, go ahead.
Here we go. I'm slow, but I'm getting them to write it. I think it's an age thing.
Okay, as you can see, what I've give you is, budget of the library that was approved in March of this year. And it was brought to my attention, and of course, I'm not saying this is an entitlement. This is a gift that was approved in March by the mayor and council, a Christmas bonus. And we have never received that, and I just thought I'd bring it back and see, you know, if you wanna honor that, or, and whatever your decision, I will respect it.
Okay, let us look over this and. So this is what you wanted, this is it.
Yes, that was it. It was just to see if it was gonna be honored, or, you know, like I said, I respect any decision that's made, because it is a gift. I'm not entitled to this. But I appreciate your consideration.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome. Next is Miss Patty Brown, available?
This one's gonna be
Come
good.
on, please.
Hello, everybody. I want to talk about.
Excuse me, would you turn around and address the
Oh,
council? This is a new for us, thank you.
Okay. Can you explain myself?
Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Patty Brown, and what I want to talk about today is beautifying Gordon, making Gordon beautiful.
Go ahead.
Okay?
No, just.
I got this in? Okay.
This is the new,
Okay.
direction that we're having to take, that you to address council on.
Okay. Well, what I want to talk about is that, different kind of ways that you can beautify Gordon's, which, like she said before, tear down old buildings and try to put new ones to replace them. And also, I would like to address, you know, as you coming into Gordon from this direction, from off of Highway 57, coming into Gordon through, the back of, Chalkman, as you coming into there, it looks so awful and terrible to me. You know, when you coming home, you wanna come home to something that's gonna be attractive, right? Okay, as far as coming in on that side of town, it look like a ghost town. It really does. Okay, as far as me, it's beautifying, you know, like as far as old family dolls, y'all need to renovate that. Try to find a way to renovate it, put, you know, fix it up, make it into some type of, you know, building or furniture store or something, you know. And also as far as cutting down trees and stuff, I noticed that the State Farm, it just rugged. You know, the bushes and everything just need to be just, you know, pulled up and replaced with new ones, you know, such as maple trees, flowers, you know, something that's not gonna be so, you know, special. And that's about all, you know, as far as the business and stuff that's already there, they need to clean up or whatever, because they're not doing what they need to be doing. That's my opinion. It just don't look good on this side of town. But as you come into the heart of Gordon, it looks good. But as far as coming into Gordon, do you agree?
You're asking me or you're asking?
I'm
council?
asking in general, do y'all think the town looks, that town looks good?
Ms. Brown, we have talked about, it's been brought to our attention on several occasions, there are several streets that are flooded up with trash and everything. One part of the town that you're talking about, just as you come off the fall line, which is 57 on 18 coming in, a good portion of it is outside the city limit, you know. DC Hardy Road, the inside part is the city limit, you know. Everything past that brick column that we got our sign on, that's the city limit sign. So anything past that road is outside, and that's in the county. So you may want to talk to the county too, just for your information. But, you know, basically, we don't have the manpower right now for our employees to go do that. And in the past, the Better Hometown Group and some of the other ones have gotten, you know, volunteers from the city, you know, different parts of the community, and have gone out and done some, you know, pick up and cleaning up. I think that is a more viable solution right now because of the, you know, lack of manpower in the city. And I would certainly like to see somebody take the initiative to try to do that again, you know. Schedule one Saturday morning when it's fairly early, and pick a street or a road or whatever, and just see how many volunteers we can get. You know, the city can furnish the trash bags, and after we get them and put them down, the city workers, you know, the next work day, they can come along and pick them up. That's typically what we do, you know. That would be my suggestion right now, you know, so.
Okay, as far as the Better Hometown, is there still, is it still?
They're still active, they don't call it Better Hometown, what is it, I'm sorry now, Mr. Bruce?
Main Street.
Main Street North, yes ma'am, sorry.
And I heard you say that, you mentioned DC Hardy Road, but you were talking about coming in from the,
Chalkman, we passed the Chalkman and going.
just trying to make clarity, okay? And right there, that's coming in at the cemetery, that direction,
Okay.
coming into what I think she's saying,
Okay.
right in that area, is that
So
what?
that is the street part, right?
It is, it's all that city street.
Well, that's
I'm
the
sorry.
main thing I was talking about, right? And then-
Get along where BAS plan is. Maybe we can talk to BASF and see if they have somebody to, you know, maybe help pick up, cause there's a lot of trash there. It's their employees, mostly quit there, because very few people travel that road since, you know, you got access to the fall line, well, 18, it's just a lot easier for people to go that way. So we'll cover that base too, but I'd like to see us get together, a group of people volunteer, and I'd certainly be willing to volunteer to go out there. I have done it, and I'm able to do it again now.
And I think you want to say something. Councilman
No, I just gonna say, there's something like that, all that chalk mine, we call it. It might hurt them, cause we all eat from that. But we can get them to help us. We see something we think, do like that. Or that part, we think mine trees,
Or is it, maybe they sell
something like that, you know.
and put some flowers out of it. So when you come in, you just want to, you know, see something live and, you know, pretty. You know, like, we're going, you know, we're going. Now I'm going. You know what I'm saying?
You live here, huh?
Yeah. But, that's all I want to say, you know, as far as, you know, cleaning up.
We do have some streets, in the city that needs cleaning up. We have quite a few, and some buildings too that need cleaning up. And we are trying to work on that. We are now in the process, supposing to have to get some, hiring two new employees to help with the city, clean city too. So, we see the problems too, so we trying, we trying. It might be a little slow, but we trying.
Is that anything else? All right, and, any other council members would like to add to that? All right, thank you so much for taking an interest in your home, and we appreciate that very much. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
I was gonna go get ready to go go ahead and come, okay. We're gonna move on to the reports and then we'll get to, come on, Bruce, please, and Councilman Smallwood has a few questions for you, see.
I got a few questions. But Ms. Pam, if you'll see this lady right here in the blue striped shirt and give her your telephone number, she'll be in touch with you, because we're working with Mr. Freddie on a blight project, and we do have certain cleanup days. We maintain all the little bump outs and boarding and things like that, and we would certainly appreciate any input and help you could give us.
Go ahead with your question, Mrs. Swan.
Now, I'm gonna ask you, I know we got a committee of,
Yeah, we got the black committee, but right now we sort of, the festival is sort of taking all our attention right now. And I got some things to go. I will tell you this, that we have got the cemetery finished over there. The gates are finished. It looks very professional, very beautiful over there. We have acquired a old railroad sign that probably dates back to about 1928. Vineyard Dinner is gonna sandblast it, paint it. We got a guy named Kevin Hales, works with UTLX Rail Company. He's gonna do the welding part to it, so we can get the depot. And the best value estimate we can get the historical people to put on around $1,250, because they just don't make these no more. It's cast iron. And now I'll tell you a little bit about some things you'll probably already know. In September, the 26th and 27th, y'all know that the steam train, the Nancy Hanks, is coming through Gordon.
Oh,
Okay?
on the 27th?
26th and 27th, that Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Now,
This is the original train itself.
steam engine is, yeah, and yeah. It's put on by the Tennessee Railroad Valley Corporation. It'll be coming out of Macon twice a day, 8 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And we figure the train will probably be in Gordon at 8:30 a.m. Return, be back about 10:30 a.m. Then they'll do another trip about 2 p.m. coming through Gordon, eastbound 2:30 and back about 4:30 for those 2 days. And we do have a vendor who will be in town doing barbecue at the depot, so people, and we expect a lot of out-of-town folks to come in and watch this as it goes by.
Who are those things?
Bobby and Gail Smith, I believe. They've been in our fall festival several years, and anytime we got something special going on, we call them and said they want to come to town for us. And
Where are they from?
yeah, and they do a very good job.
Bobby Gill.
Gary, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
And Miss Brown, we're gonna give you one too back there. So that's gonna be a very important day for us. Let me give you a few things about our fall festival. We're
So who we
working on.
contact regarding the tickets?
All right, the tickets, you have to go through the railroad themselves, the Tennessee Valley Authority on the website, Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, and the tickets are available on there, and they're different prices you can see as to what you would ride on. This is the road race application that we're putting out in connection with the Fall Line Festival. We're hoping to take our road race to a different level this year.
train don't stop here.
No, the train will not stop in Gordon, not unless y'all put a police car. But that was the information on the road race right there. We're hoping to get our participation level up. One thing we're doing this year we've never done before is offer a little bit of a winning prize. And so people come out for that. They come out big time. So Mike, you know the route we do. Here's just a little flyer we're putting out on the Fall Line.
So anybody can participate?
Oh, yes, ma'am. You can walk in that race, you can run in it. And if you're good enough, you get a prize. You get a trophy. Most people get a trophy anyway.
And it is a sanctioned race too.
It is a sanctioned
People get
race
points
with
and
the
all,
state of
you know,
Georgia.
and credit for running
Yeah.
in these sanctioned races.
Thank you, I'll give Miss Cutie some of these too. Okay,
I can't read.
all right. So we're doing great on that. We're working real hard on our vendors. Getting our vendors in this year. We've got a different format for our car show. We will have a children's petting booth for the first time. I don't know how that's gonna work out, but the children seem to love it, so we're gonna have a children's petting booth.
So what kind of animals will be?
Yes. And, the children's rides, Grand Illusion, I think out of Augusta, they're coming in, they're bringing more rides with them. I'm gonna get with Melvin and gonna do some ant control out there and stuff like that. Hopefully, hoping that Melvin's gonna be working on getting some prisoners to come out there from the county to help us clean. This round, when we did our budget, the county, the city, y'all approved $10,000, I think, out of the splosh fund. And I was supposed to come up with receipts for the first 10 grand. I'm up to 99.75. And this is what we've done. It's got the contract from the fireworks show, the band, and the Run and See Grand Pitch Road Series. Anyway, hold on. So we're hoping, it's been approved that we can go ahead and get that money to get our, all our bills
Let me
in
make
line.
a correction on that.
Yes.
That money was, was designated to come out of the One Georgia Fund, not
Okay.
the SPLOST.
Okay. Correct that, Ms. Brown.
Just, you're right, I'm sorry, I heard it, but it took me a second.
I'm glad,
Right,
yeah.
right. We designated it to come out of the One Georgia Fund, is what we did, so that it would come out of it. No, sir, it's not, sorry.
So anyway,
So what is this good vibration?
that's one of the
So
things.
y'all not going with the grapevine?
The grapevine, by the time we got to them, they're booked in Savannah. So we went through them and asked them if they were having an event, who would they get to play for them?
So it's much less, I mean, what I see is less than.
It's less, but we have put a top-notch bluegrass band in here from the North Georgia mountains, gonna play for 2 hours too. Give us a little contrast. We'll have a dance floor out front, and if you want to dance.
Now, where's this good vibration thing?
They're out of Macon. And they have 2 female singers with the 5 men singers. So, they'll be having some, good 60s music. And, if y'all have any ideas, we've got a couple of slots we're trying to fill with our local musicians in the morning. So if you've got any church groups that wants to come in, just give us a call. Call Aretha and she can find me, and we can get them worked in too. And the only other thing is the depot, Antoine Ware with municipal cleaning. He gave us a bid for $525 for coming into the depot and stripping the floors and basically revarnishing them with 2 different coats. But the way we would have to do it is, say, start on the freight side, move everything out to the other side. He would finish this room. And then the next weekend or week he would come back, we would move everything on this side, basically over here, or either outside, and then let him complete those sides over there. I had told y'all we would get some bids on that. He's the only bid we've got so far. It's $525, and he's given us a good community discount on that. So, but we're not in no hurry to do that, but we look forward to getting it done too. So if y'all have any questions on that?
Council, do you all have any questions?
On your schedule where it says, salute to American flag ceremony, is that gonna take place at 7 or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
It's
one
on
of our,
7 and then it didn't.
that's one of our most impressive ceremonies we do, is the presentation of flags. We call it the American Freedom Concert. Harold, where are you? I've got you lined up. Where our veterans bring the flags in, present the flags, national anthem, and march out, and then we do our night concert.
What's the birthday celebration?
130th birthday of Gordon.
Oh, I thought maybe, you're not recognizing the
Yeah.
elders.
Well, we can do anything we wish to do on that, we just haven't,
That's
we
what
don't
I'm
have it in
saying.
there, we haven't got that finalized, we can recognize. We have got, we've got, the lady out here on the other side of the park, but it's hard for her to come out, because last time when she come out, we got her out, and she had to go to the bathroom, we had to take her back home.
Do you have any of those portable?
We do have that, Taylor Porta Potties will be taking care of that business for us. And,
Just, as of yet, she's still alive and well, so.
okay, we'll certainly be glad to
At
recognize
least
her.
recognize.
Yes. Piggly Wiggly will be donating the cake for us on that, so, and we'll do the cake probably cutting after the flag ceremony, somewhere around 7:30. One of the things you see. So, do y'all have any questions on that? So, you want the road race?
Any more questions, any from you all, council? If not,
Thank you very much.
thank you for your report. We'll move right along to fire.
We've had, one or two grass fires, but other than that, everything has mostly been medical calls lately, so we've been well pleased with the fire reports.
Sanitation,
Everything about the same. I talked to Mr. Dixon, he said everything's rolling along pretty good.
police,
Nothing reported.
all right, streets.
No more than what was said with Ms. Brown.
All right, so that pretty much has covered everything else.
Everything else remains the same.
All right, thank you all. So now we'll move on to the audit report, hear from the auditor.
Again, my name is Miller Edwards. I have with me Mitch Greer, and also here is Mark Harrison, Clifton Liquor Harrison Park. Make sure that we're all on the same page of what I'm talking about here when I mention those two firms. You've got Clifton Liquor Harrison Parker that's doing your accounting as far as doing your financial statements and going through with Tawana and Heather and everyone and trying to figure out what to adjust things by. And we have come behind and done an audit of those efforts and activities. I'm pleased to say that where we are today is we're prepared to give an unqualified or unmodified, we call it now, which is a clean audit opinion, meaning we do believe that the financial statements that have been drafted thus far do present fairly in all material respects the financial position, the results of operation of the city of Gordon for the fiscal year ended 9/30/14. So that's always good news. You know, I can't always say that I am able to say that everywhere I go, but I am able to say that here today. So those statements are pending. I believe Mark has met with a couple of y'all already to go over the draft of them. He and I had a little confusion today. We only brought 2 copies of the statements, but what I have passed out, Tawana passed out to you all, is what we call our auditor discussion and analysis, and that actually will walk right through the financial statements and kind of, in layman's terms, in some respects, it's better than looking at the statements because the statements get so confusing in this world we live in. So that being said, let's just turn to that document that you have, and you can see on page number 1, what we're prepared to talk about today is on that agenda there. And you know, you all can ask questions throughout this entire discussion. It's not just me up here making a presentation. If you got anything, please ask. It's no waste of time. Page 2 is just to give you a little summary about who we are at Marlin Jenkins, as well as page 3. You know, the key thing to pick up on there is we serve about 75 cities, about 300 total governments. We've got a lot of experience with communities your size, larger and smaller. If you look at page number 4, again, we're prepared to issue an unmodified audit opinion. And it's really important that everybody understands everybody's responsibility when it comes to the audit process. As I touched on, John and Heather have done the closeout of the books. Mark has come in behind them and helped get the books in order for financial statement draft. And we've come in behind all parties to do the audit. So this talks about all the different responsibilities that we have. And what we're going to be prepared to issue is, again, a clean opinion whereby we believe your financial statements present fairly everything that's supposed to. There's also the last paragraph on that page. We do have a report on your compliance with laws and regulations as well as your internal controls. We do have 2 matters there that I'll talk to you about in a few minutes. You turn to page 5, and this is where we're going to kind of substitute these.
So can I just put a little question mark or something to, can I have at liberty to write on it? this?
Oh, that's yours.
Okay.
That's yours. Oh, yeah. And it is draft. It is not the public distribution yet, but it is yours. Again, on page 5, I try to give you an overview of what we have here. And the city is actually in pretty good shape. I think I mentioned that to you all when I first came to visit with you a few months back.
Then we have some money.
We got money. But again, let me cover what we got. We got here, Gordon, you look at the whole household, you look at all the different funds. Instead of just looking at one fund at a time, if you look at the whole enchilada and said, okay, how do we look? You look pretty good. You've got about $10,222,000 in assets. Now, that's not all cash. That's got your roads, your bridges, your trucks, your machinery, receivables, inventory's got everything in there.
Water, sewer. all
Everything, everything. It's about $10 million worth of assets. You've got liabilities of only about $1 million. So if I was an individual, I'd love to have this balance sheet because I'd have net worth about $9 million.
Well,
That's your net worth. Again, that's including all your real property, not just cash. That's everything. It's just like looking at your own personal financial statements. All of us are worth something. Hopefully, we got our house, we got a mortgage against the house, we got some cash. You roll it all up, you look at the net worth, the city's got a net worth on a cost base of about $9.2 million. So again, that's not too bad to have accumulated over 130 years. So, but one thing I do want to make note of as far as that, and this touches on to the heart of things, is what you all do have is a pretty good amount of cash and investments. You've got currently about $3.2 million of cash and investments as of September 30th, 2014.
Washing included.
That's everything.
All
The
three
whole
different
house.
washing.
Yes, yes. When you look at your statement of activities, which, typically we talk about an income statement. When we think of income statements, typically we think revenues minus expenses, bottom line. Well, under GASB 34, they have to think on the statement of activities as a convoluted way of looking at things. You work across that statement, the expenses first, directly offsetting revenues, it comes to the net cost of the functional areas, like the net cost of public safety. Okay, then you work down the sheet, and you determine what do we have. We've got sales taxes, property taxes to offset the actual net functionality cost. In the end of the day, you all this past year had a pretty good year. Your total expenses were $3.1 million. You had program revenues that directly offset about $1,830,000, and you had a net cost of the government of about $1,274,000. That's before property taxes and sales taxes. If you turn to the next page, of that $1,274,000 we had as net cost, you had $1,360,000. You'll see that at the top of page 6. $1,360,000 to offset that. So at the end of the day, the city, if you were a business looking at things on full accrual, just like a business would, you all had a bottom line of about $86,000. Nothing to brag about, nothing to write home about, nothing to get sad about. That's pretty good management of the situation. Okay, so again, I look at that and I think that's a pretty good thing to about broken even, maybe a
so
little
we
bit
don't
more.
have to ask anymore, where's the money?
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Let's keep going. All right, that's talking about the big picture of the whole household. Now the general fund is the next section that I talked about. When you look at the general fund, I think it's a pretty good looking fund as well. Now, something I will take note of, since 2010, which is as far back as I went just to kind of do an analysis of the situation here, fund balance of the general fund has come down about $850,000, $870,000, something like that. It's come down. That's not a bad thing. Again, even like this past year, you all budgeted to have a loss in the general fund. You actually did better than that. You didn't lose as much as you were planning. But when I say budget a loss, you're going to use your reserves. A lot of communities had to do that over the last 6, 7, 8 years. Everybody's had to do it. So it's no surprise that Gordon, Georgia had to do the same thing. The only trick is at some point we've got to look at it and say, okay, how do we start to get it back where it was? I know that's always the goal of everybody is to kind of get back pre-recession. And yes,
Just so everybody understands, this budget is covering from October 2013 to September
Yes.
of 2014. So that was a year behind.
just about a year ago.
That's not talking about anything that's happened this year. I just want everybody to understand,
Absolutely true.
Yes.
Absolutely true. But if you look at the general fund, you go to the second paragraph, we talk about the fact you've got total assets of 2.316, offset by liabilities and things of about 123,000, resulting in a fund balance of 2,192,000. Now, the most beautiful thing I see at Gordon is something I can't say too often. Typically, I try to explain to commissioners and council members that fund balance is not cash, because oftentimes fund balance is taking all your assets, including cash and other things, minus your liabilities, gives you fund balance. The beauty of yours is Your receivables pretty much offset your payables to where your fund balance is cash. So you've got about 2.188 million, almost 2.2 million of cash and investments in the general fund as of 9/30/14, which approximates what your fund balance is. You've got like a tremendous amount of liquidity there. Another thing about it is, when you go down further in the next paragraph, I talk about how it compares to operations. And you all have a pretty substantial amount of this. Let me jump to the next
Is that where
paragraph.
you
talking
have it
about-
highlighted where it says, this is good news?
Well, you got two things that are good news. The next paragraph talks about the fact you did really well with your budget action. Okay, you budgeted to use more fund balance than you had to. And that was just, again, you all being very fiscally accounting, taking care of business and not letting it get out of control. The next paragraph talks about the fact that you've got a 2,188 of general fund cash, as compared to expenditures of the general fund of about 1,562,000, meaning you've got about 17 months worth of reserves. And again, I don't know too many communities that can say that. Most people at the end of this recession, it's all they can do to have anything in reserves, and the Oregon is sitting in a pretty good shape right now. You all got a really good, strong financial position. I think a lot of communities would love to have 17 months worth of reserves, their fund balance, and for that fund balance to be cash. Again, two really good things there. So you got a real good situation financially, you did real well with the budget. Now, when I look at all other governmental funds, and this includes the general fund, when I look at this, I'm talking about all your SPOS funds, your general fund, those type of things, you all have about 3.3 million, 3,289,000 of assets. You've got only liabilities of 131,000. This does not include the water sewer fund, and this is just your governmental funds, the ones that you have to budget and you can modify to cool and that kind of thing. You've got total aggregate fund balance of 3,158,000. You've also, of that 3,158,000, it's just like the general fund. Most of your fund balance is cash. You've got $3,114,000 worth of cash and investments at 9/30/14. Again, hats off to you for being able to put such a balance sheet together. It really looks good. Your revenues this past year, when you look at all government funds, was $2,173,000. You had expenditures of $2,383,000. Transfers out to other funds, the water sewer, $34,000. Give you a net usage of fund balance of $244,000. So again, as with the general fund coming down, its fund balance a little bit this year, so are all other government funds. And again, I'm not gonna sit here and say the sky's falling. That's not the case. Most people are getting down to that point where they're trying to now grow it back up in 15, 16 going forward. I feel like y'all probably do the same thing. But again, looking at everything, you've got a great relationship with cash to your overall operations. You heard me say earlier, the general fund has about 17 months worth of reserves. If you take the general fund and SPOS and everything, you've got about 16 months worth of reserves. Meaning, when I say reserves, if you didn't collect $1 revenue over the period that followed, if you didn't collect $1 revenue, you still wouldn't get by. That's a pretty good situation to be in. Your water sewer fund, I talk about next, and it's pretty lean. It's not anything that I can sit here and write home about like I can the governmental fund, but it's not bad. And let me touch on what I mean when I say that. The water sewer fund doesn't have a very good current asset ratio, meaning you like to always see that your cash, your investments, your receivables are greater than your payables. You know, that's kind of what gets you through the month. You don't really care what your property and equipment's worth because you're not going to sell it anytime soon. And so you look at the current ratio of the water sewer, it's a little bit upside down. I think you've got about $185,000 worth of liabilities offset by $157,000 or something like that of assets. So you're a little bit upside down on the current ratio. But the water sewer fund does make things happen. It does cover a lot of its cash flows. When you look at the bottom line, there's a loss, but you add back the depreciation, which is a non-cash item. That also helps you cash flow. Now, again, I would say that you all need to always stay on top of that.
It's been 2006 since we raised our water and sewer rate, so we're almost 10 years behind. They recommend at least every 3 years, so we've been trying to get it. And it's a simple matter. All you have to do is do a new ordinance and run it in the paper for the correct amount of time. We need to do that. Yes.
Well, and you were right down the avenue I was about to go down.
Yes.
That's one of those things that you just gotta look at it and say, are the rates where they need to be? You know, it's kind of like any business. You kind of like have the wheel just kind of squeaking just a little bit and see them raise just a little bit each year so that you don't run into moments where I've seen governments have to raise the rates 30% because they didn't raise them for 10 years. I don't think you're at that point, but you want to make sure you're always on top of it. And again, you all are cash flowing, you're able to pay for things. Debt service is where you're having your struggle, and that's where you're making transfers over to the water sewer fund to help with debt service. But again, I'm not sitting here saying this is a big ugly situation. It's a very small operation. It doesn't really put that much burden on the city as a whole, but just something y'all need to take note of.
I was gonna say that, with the water and sewer, the chemical plant that's coming in to Board, we should be getting some profits from that too. Some revenue should be coming in from the water, from them using our water and sewage too.
Well, that's part of the game. You know, every community, you try to have the right kind of infrastructure in place, help bring business in, and then hopefully the infrastructure gets paid for through the usage. And so hopefully that does help out everything. But again, nothing here to really talk too much about. On the bottom of page 7 and 8, you know, I talk about the various footnotes that you've got in the draft set of statements. Again, probably information that only accountants want to read.
Before we go a bit further, and I've listened previously, and this is something that was in the previous audit that I just wanna know. With everything being a balance from that, I just wanna ask this question, because the statement was said that with the water situation, that checks and cash, what do you all recommend for that? You know, is it, everything still fine, or do we still accept cash, or how do we go about
Yeah,
that?
cash is one of the, cashless space is the most sensitive asset that we have, especially pure, good old fashioned cash. That's where embezzlements usually happen. That's where errors can happen. A lot of things can happen when it comes to cash. You know, that's one of those things I would strongly encourage the city to look at always. You've got a limited number of staff people. I've already got some management points in here talking about segregation duties and those kind of things. Nothing that's gonna be, you know, eyeball, jaw dropping, any of that kind of thing. But, you know, when you've only got 2 people primarily in that office doing a lot of different things, you know, you've got segregation duties, questions. Cash is just one of those elements that you have to always be careful about as well. I do have some clients that are small that don't accept cash. Now, that puts a burden on the taxpayers to have to go out there and go get a check. But there are people out there that don't allow anything other than checks. That's just one of those things y'all always have to just kind of determine if that's what you all should do or not. Look at your situation, determine, you know, what we've got.
Now, another question along with that, have you, developed some points or ideas as to how we might be better able to combat that problem, such as, you know, going direct, on paying online, or
Well, you know, I know you all have looked into different things about how to use technology and drafting of accounts and those kind of things. You know, that's certainly the way of the world today. I can tell you just personally for myself, my paycheck is direct deposited and I pay my bills greatly on drafting. That's one of those things, you can only kind of feel your constituency out there, the citizens. Do they want to do this? If they do, I think there's avenues out there. You know, again, y'all just have to decide what's needed here in this community. What do you all want to do?
I've listened and some have said to me that will alleviate a burden from them as to being able to, as you say, pay directly
Right.
by debit card or credit card or.
Well, it's, you know, I'm on the road a lot.
Online.
I'm on the road all the time, and it sure is nice for me personally to know that I don't have to go by the office, get my check, take the bank, stand in line, put money in the bank. You know, I will say when that first started happening, we were all a little bit leery about how this stuff worked. You know, no doubt about it, it's kind of a new thing. We've been doing it now for over a decade, and the newness is worn off. We're pretty comfortable with it, and it's just something y'all got to look at and decide it's what you want to do. No doubt about it. At the bottom of page 8, we talk about compliance reports. You all did not have to have what's called a single audit this year. You did not have enough federal grant money that warranted us having to do a special compliance audit of federal grant programs. But as part of any government audit, we have to follow something called the Yellow Book. It's something issued by the federal government that says, here's your audit standards that you have to follow. And it prescribes a certain report we have to issue relative to laws and regulations and internal controls. That report will be issued to you all. It is not a report where we don't opine in that report. We basically just tell you, here's what we tested, if we noted any problems. The only 2 things that we're gonna have in there, we can talk about later, but Mr. Hardison and his crew, as well as our audit of it, you all had several prior period adjustments. Meaning, We went back and looked at previously audited financial statements, and we found problems with the ending balances that were being audited in the past.
You
We
did
had-
what?
We found problems with the numbers that were audited in the past. We looked at it and said, you know what, that number's wrong, this standard changed a few years ago, we can make this change retroactive to the statements here. As part of doing those restatements in the revenue cycle and the expenditure cycle, we had to issue 2 material weaknesses as findings to your controls relative to the operations here. I'll get into those in a few minutes, but again, that's just something to kind of take note of. And hopefully it's a one-time situation whereby we've got these books fixed. We've had 2 very qualified firms looking at it, and I feel very comfortable being able to tell you today that you're pretty rock solid with the numbers that you got reported. On page 9, and I'm not gonna go through each one, page 9, 10, 11, those pages, 9, 10, and 11, those are required communications that we have to tell you. Communications such as, did we have any disagreements with management? Do we have any need to go outside and go get consultation from other parties? Did we have any audit adjustments? We did have one audit adjustment. We gave that back to Mark, and Juan and he looked at it, made the adjustment. Outside of that, your books were in pretty good shape from an accounting standpoint when we came here, and I will give a lot of credit to your third party service provider, including with the Hardison Park, for doing that for you and getting things in good order. And again, I think we're in good shape going forward. If you go to page 12, this is where we get into the nuts and bolts of recommendations. And the first one again is, I was making reference to it a moment ago about being a fine. This is accounting and reporting for revenues and receipts. We had some issues with prior year recognition of lost money, your tablet money, as well as your other property taxes, and we also had a current year adjustment to your SPLOST monies as far as the revenue stream went. Okay. After making all those adjustments, you can see some of the adjustments in the size of them. It became apparent to us that because of the size of the financial statements, that these in aggregate became material adjustments, significant adjustments. And so we made this as a fine because of its materiality. Again, I want to say hats off to the cooperation and the hard work of your staff. They were very understanding of what was being proposed to them. There was no debate. They want to do things right. They want to do the right things. And this is just one of those moments where we try to help them get it right. And so again, it's a good working relationship there, but again, we still had to cite it as a fine. The same thing is true with number 2 down below on page 13. We had some accounts payable and some accrued expenses in the past that were not properly booked. I've got those kind of denoted down below. The general fund had some regular expenditures, some salaries, some accrual of salaries. The library fund had some salaries. Water sewer had some regular expenses, some inventory, some salaries.
Can you, when you be a bit more, you say, add some what?
Like the failure to accrue the proper amount of payroll, for example. At the end of the year, at 9/30/14, at 9/30/13, at 9/30/13, you have a payroll that may not be paid as of that day because it may be paid the next week. Okay? And so what you have to do is you have to accrue so many days worth of payroll for the next pay period because the curtain dropped on 9/30/13. And if you shut down the business, you still owe the employees through that day. That's called accrued payroll, accrued salaries. That had not been properly booked in the prior year.
So is that why it carried over to, the question being asked, where's the money?
Well, I don't know if that's where the question's being driven, but certainly when you look at salaries, you want to make sure that the accrual is right, that we're recognizing the correct liability in any period in.
At 3 instances, I believe, if my memory serves me right, it happened twice.
What's that?
From that period, from 2013 up until 14. No money's in the bank and all of this,
And that just has to do with making transfers, putting money into the various accounts. And you got a pretty good amount of cash invested.
So is it just to make it clear on the part of the mayor, it was not the mayor had anything to do with that? The money that was not available was because of an oversight or misappropriation?
I don't think the mayor's had anything to do with the findings that we have here or the cash situation.
Thank you.
Again, these are just accounting things, that it's just one of those things that you gotta just treat each year independent of the other, and try to, we call it tall, we try to observe good tall.
I just like a good, clear name.
Okay, so again, that's what we talked about there on those pages. Now, on page 15, we have no more findings, and all these remaining items are nothing more than recommendations. You can say, we'll do them, or we won't do them, it's really up to you all, but I felt like part of why you would hire a firm like ourselves to come in and try to give you all recommendations for how you might do things better. Again, before you even dive in, I want to just again say what I've already said before. Your people here work hard. What we need to do is we need to find out how to work them smarter, how to work them better, how can we work them with good controls in place. And I think, with a little bit of open-mindedness on everybody's part, and a little bit of just thinking outside the box, we probably can accomplish a lot of objectives here without having to go hire more people. But you may decide that you need to hire another person to have the best controls. That's one of those things you can kind of at a rock and a hard place. A lot of governments just they can't afford the perfect control system. You're not going to that county, you can't go hire 100 people in the accounting department.
So when and I hear what you're saying, but what would be a good or a smart suggestion? Have you put that in place?
I've got that in.
Okay.
Let's just walk on.
All right.
The first one I've got has to do with preparation and presentation of budget. I believe when I came here in February, you all had just gotten your 9/30/15 fiscal year budget that we're now in. You were just now adopting. Our recommendation is, even though you all are in pretty good shape, but you didn't have to worry too much about where's the money going to be. You might say you got 16, 17 months worth of reserves. And still, I'll try to get the budget done before year end, before the new year starts, and that's just a recommendation. Do what you want with it. Amendments to the budget. One thing that, and you're not by yourself. Let me say, I made this comment to a lot of cities and counties that I go to. I'm a big believer in amending the budget. A lot of people like to set the budget and then leave it alone all year long. But the trouble is that things evolve, things happen.
Exactly.
Revenues may be high, may be short. And all of a sudden, maybe we don't need to spend, maybe we don't need to go buy those 2 police cars, maybe we don't need to go buy that fire truck. Amending the budget is not a bad idea. I've got some clients that only do it once a year. At the mid-year point, I've got some that do it monthly, okay? I've got some that don't do it at all. You all are one of those. But I do think you're missing an opportunity there because the budget can be a great tool. It can be a really good tool, and things do change, for better and for worse. And amending the budget helps you all control the situation, I think. But again, it's a recommendation. Do what you want with it. It's just something I noticed as your first time auditor. All right. Item number 3, the County Policies and Procedures Manual. The City of Gordon kind of operates based on practice, operates the way they've always done things. And that's fine. And I don't have a problem typically with the way things are being done. But I'm a big believer that we ought to have some kind of guidance out there, some kind of policy and procedure manual. There are different people out there who can help you do this.
And who are they?
Well, the Carbon Institute of Government can help you. I might be putting words in his mouth, but Mark may be able to help you as your accountant. I don't know. This is not an uncommon situation that we run across, and it's just one of those things. It would be helpful to everybody, because then that gives everybody guidance. There's no question about who does what, when, and how. And I think as we look at these internal control segregation duties issues, it may even be a way of including you all as part of these controls. That's when I said re-engineering and not hiring more people. Maybe there's a way that each and every one of the council members and the mayor can play a role when it comes to internal controls. Now, you may sit and say, no, I don't want to do that, but.
One of the suggestions that I had, that each council member, when they're elected, gets a copy, because I know in previous, council did not have access. I don't know whether they just didn't want it or it was not made available to them, but with all of us, my interest is that each one know what's available, what's on hand. So you never
I've got a point on that as well. All right. Number 4, reconciliation of cash. This is the segregation of duties. Okay? We're not saying we solve a problem, we just see the misuse of cash. But you've got the same check preparer, the same check signer, also an authorized general ledger clerk. The same person prepares the bank reconciliations. It'd be nice if y'all could break that up a little bit. Even if it means that maybe one of you council members review the bank rec. Something to help not have just one person. And I don't want you to think one person that I'm talking about steal money.
Exactly.
We're human. We make errors.
Right.
And instead of having that same person doing each step all the way, make an error, have it not detected. Right. If we can have maybe some other people involved to help just check and make sure it's okay. That's an example right here. Same thing's true of receivables down below, item 5. We've got the deputy city clerk does a lot of things for you. Okay? And I just think we ought to look and see how we can re-engineer things. And if they can't be re-engineered, then you have the choice, how do you want to maybe address the situation? I'm here to help. I'm here to help you avoid a crisis in the future should something erroneously occur. Accounts payable, same idea. We've got the city clerk does a lot of things relative to the payable side, expenditure side. Item 7.
What is this? There's something, we also know the invoices are not entered into the general ledger.
They're held. The invoices, and this is not unusual to see in a small government. If you're not using the system and inputting those when you get them, you just hold them in a, like, I'm going to just be facetious, but hold them in a bucket, in a basket, just waiting to be paid. And where we pay them, we'll put them in the system at the time of payment. Our comment is, maybe we'll put them in the system as soon as we get them, and have a control feature there to make sure that we're doing those things timely and correctly.
Well, we definitely need to.
So again, that's just one of those things, but you know, you've only got 2 people,
I understand.
and
I mean,
someone's
you know,
spending a lot of time doing the minutes too, I mean, things like that. You've
Right.
only got so much time to do all that.
Right, and I
Sometimes we
understand,
don't have the money to pay them when they come in.
and I'm listening, but we're just gonna have to find other alternatives.
Well, and that's the challenge.
Right.
And again, item 7 kind of gets back to what I was just touching on. Your manager here runs a lot of reports. They run the monthly reports. The trick is they're not doing reconciliations, they're not doing a qualitative review of what we have. Okay, just hitting a button and running the reports and putting it on a shelf, that's not really the answer. If we're gonna run the reports, let's use the reports, let's tie the reports down, let's make sure the reports are right.
Well, that
And that's
again,
item 7.
that again, will entail, more help. And this, I mean, I'm sorry to say, council, but we've only got 2 people and limited and listening to the clerk. She's overworked a lot of times, and we just need not overwork her like that and get us some help. So, thank you so much for that.
Number 8 is time reporting. So I understand the time sheets are supposed to be signed off by the department heads prior to submission. But during our review of payroll, we noted that not all time sheets were received by the department heads and signed off.
Could I look at that, because I've not seen the time sheets?
She's got all the time sheets. The trick is having the different department heads sign off on them. You've got all your different functional areas. And the way your practice is, and you don't have a policy saying this, but your practice is, the department heads are supposed to sign off on it.
Well, that will be something we'll need to update.
And we just need to make that part of our new policies, write some good policy procedure manuals, and then let's follow through and do it. Right now, your practice is, this is what you're supposed to do, not a policy being presented. But even the practice is not being necessarily always done.
So, we'll get with you on that.
Payroll, again, it's kind of like accounts payable and other things. We've just got situations where we've got one person that does everything.
Right.
Okay.
It's too much.
All right, the next one is resolutions, ordinances, change to the city charter. I'm gonna just say, as your first time auditor, I was trying to get my arms around all the rules and things I was always hearing. Your minutes, by the way, are really long.
Right.
I've
I've gone to several
verbatim nature of those minutes makes for some good reading.
Right.
We've had to read them for the last 2 years, every single one of them. And there's a lot of times there's statements about that's against our policy, that's against our law, that's against our resolutions. And then I started asking Tawana, I was like, can you give me a copy of this?
Right.
She's like, well, no, I don't know where that is. I even reached out to your attorneys. They were concerned about talking to me about this. Where I'm going with this entire point is, we need to have a place that all this is housed.
Right.
If there's gonna be rules, ordinances, and laws that we are gonna follow, then as your auditor, I should be able to ask management for a copy of those so that I can test to see that you do things in accordance with. But unfortunately, that was not available. So it's kind of tied in with that policy procedure manual idea.
Right.
We need to really get our policies in order, we need to get our resolutions in order. I know your charter, I think, was revised in 1988, but it's been superseded a few times since. And I would
Only
say,
by ordinances. We change by ordinance. You can do local charter changes by ordinance only.
and I went to the state, various websites out there trying to get the most superseded version of it, and just trying to get my arms around what was the rules that are being always alluded to in the minutes. I didn't know what they were. And so if I can't find them, then it just seems like maybe we ought to have those housed, aggregated and compiled a little better, so that any one of you all, for that matter, could sit there and say, well, let me look at that.
Well, I've been trying for 5 years. I've had money in the budget 2 or 3 years in a row. I've asked to have the charter revised and all the ordinances compiled back into the charter, and the charter updated to the newest, latest thing, and I just haven't gotten anywhere. We've got 2 bids, from muni code and municipal code, you know, for what they would do it for.
Mhm.
And, I just don't get any help from anybody to move that forward.
Well, hopefully this will
Well,
help.
let me
I hope it
interject.
does, I really hope it
I
does.
do think,
Here
you
we
know,
go,
it's just
David.
one of those things, whenever I go do other audits, and, you know, I'll be able to say, okay, what is your policy relative to this? What is your resolution or law relative to that? And I can audit and test according to those. And I think she can appreciate it. I would ask her a question, or Mitch would, and she'd say, that's just the way we've always done it. I don't know where the resolution or ordinance is.
And
That's another problem with that. I don't know where the clerk prior to me put some of these at.
Absolutely.
Plus, there was a time when my file cabinet keys were taken from me and things disappeared from my file. And I can't say that I have them when I'm not sure all of this is there. There's several reasons,
Well, again,
but I agree with you.
just as your third set of eyes, I'm just looking at it,
And let
saying,
me
y'all just need to
interject.
look at this. and-
let me interject and say to that, and I hear what you're saying, but prior to my coming in office, after the election, I tried to get copies of the charter. And, it took 3 months.
I'll tell you,
Let me
it's
say
not
this.
easy. It's not easy.
To say this, and I had to wind up, I did get a copy from the attorney, our city attorney, which I think is a fee of $300 to get him to get that. But then upon looking at that, when I read that charter, this is the one I wound up with, and it's the one that's most, up to date. And I had to wind up going to Atlanta, going to retrieve that, and I finally got it, at this point. And then when I get in here and I read through this completely, as a matter of fact, I was in Atlanta and read through the entire charter because, earlier this year, they had me to do a deposition, and I read the entirety of this, and half of what is necessary is not in here. I mean, as far as the resolutions, I don't see anything now. This council is pretty much not dealing so much with ordinances as opposed to what the charter is saying. It's talking about more mainly resolutions, but this charter specifically states ordinances.
Well, I don't envy any, let me say it.
And I'm just
But
trying to
what,
get it-
I don't envy anybody who is an elected official at any community when they have to learn so much about so many things. And you all, you have to learn a bunch about everything. One of the things though that I would at least want to do if I was in one of your shoes, I would be able to know where do I go to get the answer to what is the rule?
Exactly.
What does our current ordinance say? I couldn't find that with these, so I can't imagine you all could find it with these. And it's just a recommendation that maybe you work with your law firm, work with somebody.
Well, let me interject and say, with that being asked, and I'll specifically say from mine, it's not about me, but it's about doing the right thing. When I call and ask and I get information, it's just not there, or I just feel like some time ago that trying to retain information or get information has just not been conducive for this administration.
Again, that's for you all to dive further into. I am trying to tell you as your third set of eyes, it was a struggle for me to know exactly
So
what
if
the
you,
rules were.
well, you can imagine what it
And
is
so,
for me.
again, I don't envy any elected official in the community having to know all these things. It's doubly hard, it's hard to find the information. And it ought to be centrally housed somewhere where someone can say, here's the ordinance from July of 1998, and this is why we do what we do.
But I can say, earlier this year, we met with state representative, our state representative and senator, and they're in agreement with this. And, council, you will know that right now, hopefully, with what you're saying, they're going to help us with the regional commission, working with
That'd be a
us
good way
too.
to go as well.
So that will help us save a lot of monies. So along with the muni code, we're now revising all of that, and half of this, and like you said, and I met with them at the regional commission, as far as these minutes will go up on the website. And just as you're saying, it's a bit much, but we've got to find a way to minimize and do it within the legal ramifications of keeping the minutes at a minimum of just
Well, on that whole side,
summarizing.
I've only got a handful out of 300 government served for people that they have hired court reporters to do all that because of how lengthy it is.
Right.
Most places do nothing more than a summary. there was discussion about X, Y, Z.
I've tried to
A motion was
introduce
made
that.
by so-and-so,
Right.
seconded by so-and-so, no further discussion, it was passed or it failed.
Exactly.
You all, it's a long, I mean, I feel her pain. I feel her pain. She's not a court reporter, but, you know.
And, as I've said, as a council, we've tried many a times, we've gone to training, especially, and I'm sure that other council members can attest, that we've gone to training and we've sat in on these trainings as new elected officials. And they've explained that to us, that they need to be kept at a minimum, but however, we get back to the meeting, certain council members want to keep it every, word verbatim.
Again, that's something you all just have to decide. But it is tough. I think you got it.
I'd like to clarify something for the record. There's been some discussion about ordinances, resolutions, and motions. I'm unaware of one request that was made of our office for an ordinance resolution, or anything of that nature that wasn't produced, that we were unable to find. I am aware of what the clerk mentioned earlier, that there have been some that she has been unable to find, that she has called our office, and I think we've resolved any issues that the clerk had.
And you have to remember, that's a clerk attorney relationship, not we can, but that we're not here to discuss that, we're here to get the auditor.
Okay, item 11 is about accounts receivable. We just recommend that you all periodically review the allowance without the accounts. Unfortunately, this world we live in, not every debt gets paid. We've got customers that can't pay, don't pay, and we just recommend you all, say you got a total balance of $50,000 owed to you, are you gonna collect all of it? Are you only gonna collect 48,000 of it, 49,000, 50,000, whatever it's gonna be analyzing that. Right now, we didn't see any evidence that was being done at all. So I would definitely say periodically, quarterly, semi-annual, sometime or other, just take a look at it and see if it looks like it's the right level.
What was that again?
The allowance for doubtful accounts. This is item 11. Number 12, the Georgia Fund 1. We were just trying again to follow what the practice, what the law was, what the policy is. My only point is, we have some inconsistency there. The only activity that we saw what we had at the table, going back to November 13th, and that's been the window of our audit, starting on October 1st to 13th. And, you know, when I was trying to, again, understand what was the situation, you know, I wanted to just let you know there was no approval on November 20th or February 24th or on January 21st. You all did go through the approval process relative to the deposit of that $2 million into it. I think you all had some CDs that redeemed, and you all put them in there.
Excuse me, repeat that again. That was what dates that you
They're
have?
right here on page 19. There were some dates that you all had approvals, and there were some dates that are not in. And all I'm saying is that y'all just need to be consistent, you know, as to what that is. I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. I'm just telling you that right now, practice being inconsistently applied.
So only, I'll be able to point that out, that it was not brought to be inconsistent until I come aboard, apparently.
Well, again, we were auditing going back to 10/11,
Exactly.
2013, and on November 2013, there was a withdrawal, but there was no approval by city council. Again, we noted that again on February 24th of 14, as well as January 21st of 15.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That one, January 21st, when the mayor moved it, later we did approve.
You did subsequently.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. We brought that up at that time, you know, and we tried, and we couldn't do it, but she moved it anyway, so. All right, just making a statement.
And
Can I
along
clarify
with-
something for the record on that as well, please?
Excuse me,
You did clarify something there.
where?
On the record. The minutes that he refers to in January 5th, there was
January 5th of what year?
this year, ma'am. Prior to that, in August, I think it was August 14th, when we had originally transferred the money, it was done by resolution. I think you're correct about that. Councilman Terry Reese was the one who suggested that, and we felt that was correct at that time. And the council it's something the council, the procedure the council wanted to follow. I think it's a bit disingenuous for the mayor then to say that we shouldn't have followed that procedure. The next time it was suggested to be moved was on January 5th, I think as your report states. In the minutes, top of the page 22, the mayor said, "All right, the next item I have is Georgia Fund 1. I spoke with Ms. Mabry with the State Treasury Department today regarding withdrawing funds to cover our city's outstanding accounts. She has instructed me on how to proceed with this requisition. She says, we will need a resolution, so I am proposing to the council to withdraw from the Georgia Fund 1 account the money to cover the payroll in both areas of January 2015. So this council has always done it that way. That's the mayor's ratification that we should continue to do it by resolution on January 5th, and we continue to do it that way because we've had no opposition from the council.
And the reason why I may have done it that way, or to say it correctly, is because I probably was advised by the then city attorney, Boone, and may have been why it was done that way, because being a new person on board, I would not have known to do that. So along with,
Well, Mayor, in the list,
excuse me,
you
let me
specifically
finish,
state-
please, I did not finish. And I have a letter here from the Office of the Treasury Department giving me the information that I needed to have to make the necessary changes regarding the Georgia One Fund, as well as their resolution that they have sent me this information. And upon learning that before Councilman Terry Reese's demise, I had no knowledge of Green, except he worked with that firm at the time, but since his appointment by the courts, I guess, as the city attorney part 2, so, you know, I can't dispute what they're saying, but nevertheless, we need to stay on the audit.
My point is just being consistent as to what we're doing.
Right.
This is where, you know, it'd be good to have policy procedure manual,
Exactly.
all the legal information is all readily available to you all to manage, to people like ourselves, better,
And we'll get it.
better be.
With you all's help, that's where we want to be.
That's all I'm saying, it's just how, getting consistent with our practice.
Right.
How we
Thank
do it, and have it documented.
I don't know why we are doing resolutions for a lot of things that we are doing resolutions for. Even, you know, when we amend, because when we get money from a farm, we should be amending the budget. That's what we should be doing. And when we amend the budget, we should be doing it by order. And then, if you look at it, section 317 of our city charter states, acts of the city council, which have the force and effect of law shall be enacted by an ordinance. So that's, you know,
That's right there.
it's in our charter.
I believe it continues on to say resolution.
Yeah, it goes right on, you can read it in 317. So I really wonder why we are doing under, section 3.17, and I'm wondering why we're doing so many resolutions anyway, when we should be doing this.
And it states specifically, as you said, Councilwoman Whipple, and I see it, and in my reading, I've not seen resolutions except so much as to when it comes to, this administration. Because all of this
Can we get back on the audit?
further states that this is the audit. When it
No, it's
states
not.
specifically when it's dealing with money. And if you read just as she said, ordinance, it says, section 3.16, ordinance, every proposed ordinance shall be introduced in writing and in the form required for final, it shall not contain a subject which is not expressed in its title. And as she said, it states ordinances, not resolution, so maybe you all might need to read y'all's charter. Thank you.
We know the charter pretty good, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
But now, you were one who said that you didn't understand the charter until I come on board, so we'll
No,
go.
ma'am, I have not said that.
Let's go ahead.
Mr. Edwards, you just another copy of that you passed out to the council. Mr. Travis,
Mitch, if I could have another copy of that agenda.
please.
Yeah, agenda. All right, again, let's go back to item number 13. We've got aged accounts, outstanding accounts receivable. You know, I was talking about the allowance earlier, about considering if you've got uncollectible level, and what that allowance ought to be. Additionally, you all should look at see if you should do some actual write-offs. Now, a write-off can only be done by action of this governing board right here. So if all of a sudden I'm one of your customers and I pass away, and there's a debt on the books for $88, you might want to go ahead and write that off. If it's old, it's outdated, and it ain't gonna get paid anytime soon. So I just recommend, we notice a lot of old ones in there, and the y'all just might want to look at it, get with management and see if there's any judge, just go ahead and formally, you all determine what needs to be written on.
Well, being that you're appointing these out to us, is there a specific day or date that we need to get this done? Because, I take that very,
I would tie it into the allowance without accounts that I talked about earlier. If you look at something that's probably not gonna get paid, and say it's 180 days past due, it's a year past due, whatever it might be, you also need to consider whether or not you need to keep that on the books, or if it should be just written off. It's kind of like a financial institution.
how do we do it if we never see it?
Management needs to look at that, and also that you can see it and don't make those kind of determinations.
We'll get with you and help us out with that too.
Capital assets, we recommend that you just implement appropriate review procedures to make sure that it gets complete. You do have capital assets. When I say capital assets, I'm talking about trucks, roads, bridges, buildings, all those kind of things, equipment. And right now, we did have some errors detected as going through the audit process and the closeout this year, where depreciation was not being calculated correctly. It may even be over depreciating an asset, et cetera.
In reading this, you said during your review of capital, you noted depreciation schedule needed updated for a project related to brick columns at the cemetery. An initial amount was capitalized by management. What are you saying?
It was put on the listing and being something to capitalize. You all, this is where government gets confused, because you all budget to expense these things when you do them. Unfortunately, in the world I live in, we have to almost undo what you all do at the entity-wide level, and that is put those as assets onto a schedule. The schedule is something that management needs to prepare during the year. I will tell you, a lot of governments, it's the last thing they do because they're expensing them throughout the year. The trick is just make sure we're keeping a little side schedule of all things that should capitalize in the year, and then calculate depreciation and accumulate depreciation accordingly. And again, we just recommend that the main things have somebody review it. I mean, right now, one person does it.
When you say somebody, you're talking about someone such as yourself, or?
Like yourselves. I mean,
Well, I don't get that information. How do I go about getting it?
I think after this meeting, y'all should all talk and see about how you can get various information, decide what you can do as far as playing a role amongst the entire governing board, or if you need to have another third party to help you do any of those kind of controls, any of those kinds of controls. Again, I'm trying to just kind of share with y'all some things we saw, and you all, you heard me say earlier, take it for what it's worth. Some things just aren't feasible to do. Insurance is number 15. Our recommendation is what you probably already know and feel. We just know you got some pending issues out there. You're basically uninsured right now for certain actions, and we just recommend that you try to do everything you can to find some manner of being insured. It's just really important when you're a city this size.
Attorney, have you had any opportunity since the last, I think you said y'all checked with someone, but you all were not able to find anyone?
No, ma'am.
Is that, am I understanding correctly?
Correct. See, there's only about 4 companies in the country that like this kind of insurance. So if you go to, Robbie Bix, you go to Atlanta, to Garma, you go somewhere else, they're all dealing with the same brokers. They're all dealing with the same 3 or 4 or 5 companies. So going to 10 agents is not gonna get you 10 different quotes from 10 companies. You're gonna be getting quotes from the same 3 or 4 companies, and apparently these folks read newspapers, watch Facebook, YouTube, and have discovered there's some issues going on that it was alluded to that led them to tell us that they will not insure the city.
And again, all you can do is just keep doing your best to do your job here at the city. Try to, as Mr. Boone said, he's correct. There's only a handful of people out there that do this type of insurance. And you just gotta do what you can to, I would meet with them. I'd find out what it is that you all need to do to satisfy them, find out what changes need to be made, and see if you can get in, because right now, you got fund balance and you're healthy. But I sure would hate for something to happen, something catastrophic. Let's don't talk about something just ugly, let's say something catastrophic, and all of a sudden the city is exposed to a risk that's not sure.
I think we'll be able, I think, Councilwoman Whipple, did you not speak to someone, they said they may be able to help us?
I did.
So we'll take a look at that, and with everything, you know, that's going on, and so maybe with a few of this that you pointed out, like the EOC, see some of that transpire before this administration, and I think it carried over to reflect, with this administration, which was not good, because all of this was already in the past, so.
Well, yeah,
we just
I'm
have to
thinking
do-
about things more catastrophic. I'm thinking about somebody getting hurt on the job, something really significant, loss of life, something of that kind. And
That's what
We
I would
covered
think.
under those.
you covered for that.
We got workman's comp, and we have regular liability on all our vehicles, on all of our buildings, on all of our property. The only thing we do not have is public liability on us and the police officers and the people themselves, you know, personal public liability. That's the only one, and we can't get it because of all the lawsuits that have been filed in the past year.
And I fully understand.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things I would feel remiss if I didn't say anything to you about. It's just something.
We
put on the
tried,
radar.
we tried. They wanted
And I think-
$75,000 for $50,000 worth of coverage. I mean,
And-
it wasn't worth
That
it,
didn't
you know.
make sense, does it?
No, it didn't make sense. We didn't do it.
And you know, and I agree with him, but all of this nonsense that's going on, it doesn't make sense, but, you know, people do what they do, nonsense, and we'll move on.
Item 16 has to do kind of like the capitalized assets. Is you got prepaid insurance, you got prepaid expense accounts. That is where you pay something ahead and you amortize over the useful life of it. And we did have a discrepancy there of about $7,200. We passed on making the adjustment, but we do recommend that you all, again, have more of a review process. Have somebody review what's being calculated and make sure that amount is correct. Again, you kind of see the theme throughout this: review. Cash disbursement control.
I think that's why we're gonna be paying you to help us out.
On the cash disbursement controls, we noted areas that need to be improved. We noted that check copies are not always maintained in the city's files in an orderly fashion. When we would ask for something, we would get it, but it was sometimes hard for that person to put their hands on it. Really, this is all about just, we gotta find a way of being a little bit better organized. And again, when I look at it and say there's two ladies and they're doing everything under the sun, I can see how things like this can kind of become
So,
unorganized.
to minimize all of this, it just makes good sense to get enough, help to bring aboard. And that's what once this is pointed out to us and we know that this is a problem to alleviate,
I would say, first thing y'all ought to do, to all of these points, is y'all just need to meet and to talk and decide what's of interest to you all, and what can maybe anybody come up with ideas about what needs to be done. I am not a proponent of saying you gotta hire more people, okay? You may decide to do so. At the same time, you may say, you know what, it's just not worth it. We're gonna take the risk on this element, okay? But again, it's just something you all need to look at and consider, and that's, I'm just trying to bring it to your attention. Okay. Approved vendor list, we know the city does not maintain an approved vendor list. We recommend that y'all consider having one. I think it makes business a little easier when you've got an approved vendor list. You've got some open vendor accounts, however. This is item 19 on page 22. And again, we just think that you all need to determine if open accounts are even necessary. And we recommend the city limit its use of open chart accounts for vendors.
let me say that, and I hear what you're saying. That would be one that we'll definitely look into, because I know nothing of, except one that, I think a vendor account that I was just told recently that was closed, and that was the local, Family Dollar. So if we got all these other vendors, I don't see why it's necessary.
Well, again, it's just something y'all to talk about. Some of these things you may say, you know what, Mr. Edwards
I'll
brought this
take
up,
a
but
look at that list.
we may want to keep it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question. If we have two local businesses, you know, Parts Place and then the hardware store, J.E. I mean, we've always had the process of going down there, and when Melvin or one of his workers go, if they need a tool,
Right.
or they need a part, or a part place to buy something, you know, they get it and they sign the ticket. Is that what you're talking about? I mean, pretty much.
That is, but we just need to make sure we get down just those few that we absolutely need to do that with. I can see what you're talking about. Something's
I
pretty
didn't know
important.
of very many more other than those
So
two,
we
you know.
just need to make sure that that's what we need to keep doing.
And you-
And again, and you gotta remember, we're new to it. We're new to Gordon.
Right.
You know, we're out of Macon. And so when we start seeing any of these kind of things, we're like, well, what's there to document it? Where's this set up? Why do we have it? Do we need to have it? And that's a question you all need to ask periodically of yourselves.
And we do have a purchase order system, and it's like, I'm over the fire department, if we're going to buy anything, I get the vendor to give me a price. I call City Hall and get a PO number, and I tell them the approximate price is what it's gonna be. When they fill the order, and they send it in, and they get the invoice, myself and one of my, subordinates go in and we sign off saying that we did receive it. So I thought everybody was pretty well doing that, the department heads.
Not all. Okay. So again,
That would
it's
be
one of those
something
things
we'll-
to stress.
Sure.
And that's one of those things, a lot of times, I think about the Georgia Port started talking about this, the tone at the top is so key to a lot of these kind of things happening. You all make it a mandate, we've got to improve in certain areas, we're not gonna tolerate any exceptions. Then over time, not overnight, over time, a lot of these concerns that I might have voiced today will take care of themselves. But it does take a tone at the top, a tone that has to be strong, has to be patient, it has to be persuasive. And it's just one of those things, that's kind of what I'm seeing is already some of this. It's just, I'm throwing out things for you all to consider. And
Sure. And we usually do consider all the things that we have, and we try to correct them. We
Sure.
do. We certainly do.
like I said,
I think you'll see that
I
county.
wanna make it real clear, I wanna make it real clear. These management are one thing, but your financial position, your status, y'all are a community of Indian, I would think. So again, this is a pretty good looking community.
And I hear that, however, we don't want to negate the fact that what you found, just as you said, we further recommend the city limits use open charge accounts for vendors in order to help prevent and turn around, which could be possibly potential fraudulent charges. That's what we're and it's good, as you said, we thank you for that great report, finding that we do, but how we want to be, it's called accountability.
That's right. We just wanna keep it going.
Right,
Keep it going in the right direction that y'all have gone. Y'all have done a great job preparing.
thank you.
Item number 20, customer deposits. It's kind of like that bad debt that I was talking about earlier, we're looking at old outstanding receipts. You all also have deposits. When someone wants to get water here, they have to put in a deposit. Some of those deposits are really old. I'm even wondering if people even still live there. You all need to look at those deposits and decide, do we have monies that we need to pay back to people? Or for that matter, even have to go through the state sheet laws. They have to turn it into the state as unclaimed monies. Oftentimes, you see this in water, sewer, gas, and electric. You see where people have deposits for services. They move out of state to Arizona, you can't find them, and all of a sudden, that money's sitting there still in your books. Unfortunately, it's not your money just to keep. There's a sheet laws in the state of Georgia that you have to follow, and there's a lot of different layers of sheet laws, and not just one set for everything.
So in other words, we need to get
You
in
look at your,
compliance.
look at your customer deposits listing and decide if you've got some things on there that might need to be addressed from an unclaimed property standpoint.
What we've seen most of the time, when they do move like that, they move off owing us money on the water bill, so, we probably don't even break even really to own it.
And that may be the case.
Sure.
Absolutely. Item 21, signature cards. One of the first things we're gonna look at is see who's on the signature cards of various accounts. Comment, we just need to make sure that y'all are always on top of who's on the signature card. I think Mr. Reeves is actually even still on the Georgia Fund One. I'm not worried about a check being written on Mr. Reeves, but at the same time, you all need to just make sure you've always got a good current signature card at any place that you all have accounts.
Well, we had a motion on the table to correct that, and, because of certain things that went on that night, we just finally dropped it and moved on.
Okay.
There was a motion on the floor, and it had been recommended that we clear it up, but we moved on for, a matter of time.
Well, again, that's just one of those things that every government typically has to do this periodically. Things
Yes.
change.
And,
y'all
on
just
that
make sure
note-
you've got current signature cards.
Right, and on that note too, with that Georgia Fund One, because that's what you're talking about.
Well, that's certainly one of them. though.
That, I'll make sure that I get that squared away, because as a mayor, I have been, according to the Treasury Department, to determine how we.
Well,
That's not a
no,
true
that's
statement.
not entirely
When I
true.
say-
That is not.
You still
I
need to
didn't
bring it back.
finish, I didn't finish, that's what I'm saying. I will then, once that decision is made, then bring it back to council, is what I'm saying.
Well, again, that does, anytime there's a signature card issue, whether it's at a local institution, joint fund one, whatever it might be, signature cards need to be approved
By
this
council first,
Absolutely.
not the mayor.
Exactly.
The mayor doesn't have any legislative
Exactly,
authority.
and I
And I just
understand
want her
that,
to understand
and
that.
I've done that before, I've made the recommendations, so it has to be approved by council, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 22, this year your financial statements do not have what's called a manager's discussion and analysis. And that's okay, it's not like you have to have it, but I would recommend next year, 9/30/15, that you have that as part of your draft financial statement. Right now, when you look at the statements, all that's gonna be in there is a bunch of numbers, and then a bunch of footnotes. The MD&A, the beautiful thing about the MD&A is it's written in layman's terms, it explains to people why things went up and why things went down. I find it a very helpful piece of an overall financial report. This year, because of the time frame that was not set to be done, I just strongly encourage you to be, and in the case of what you got right now, I'm sure that the external party, that firm, as well as Quanah, and you all can write it together. Yeah, exactly.
So that won't be a bit of a burden.
I don't think so, it's just right now, it just wasn't in the cards right now. And it's not, I'm not writing you up and not doing it, I'm just recommending you give it some thought. I've got clients who flat out don't do it any year, they just elect not to do it. I kinda hate that for them, their
I
constituents.
just don't think I've ever heard that, you know, I mean, I'm sure you know it, but I just, that management, MDA,
You've never heard of it actually being done?
not here.
Okay. And it may not have been.
They've not done a lot of things here.
That's just one of those things I would just offer to you. It's helpful to me. I tell you, a lot of times where I meet with, council members and commissioners, one of the things I tell them, instead of just listening to me and reading 100 pages of a report, you go to those 5, 6, 7 pages of an MDA. It's written very briefly, concisely,
Very concise.
and in layman's terms, and I really like it, and I think it can help you all as well as your public to understand their finances. The last thing I've got on page 23 is item 23, and that really is just kind of a culmination of all these other things I've talked about. And that is, y'all just need to look at everything and decide what's of interest to you relative to your segregation of duties. You can see throughout these management points that I had a lot of things where I was talking about one person does everything. Y'all just need to look at it and say, well, what about if he does this, not that, she does this, not that, and kind of move things around for responsibility. It's not easy. I can tell you, I'm not gonna put words in management's mouths, but it doesn't make life easy when you all of a sudden find yourself having, instead of just having that one thing you're doing, it's a lot easier to do that. Now, all of a sudden, if I sit there and say, well, can you have Heather do these 2 things and Wanda do these 2 things, well, shoot, that's gonna make things inefficient. You gotta find the right break of where inefficiencies and good controls are. And so I'm offering you today just a bunch of ideas that you can do whatever you like to.
So what we might need to do is take a look at the job description and incorporate that and see. I think because that too will give us some
I think right now
insight.
you've got a combination of a lot of things. I think, again, you heard me say a moment ago, y'all ought to be, talk with management, talk about what of these points concern any one of you all, okay? Then you got to, maybe you talk to me, maybe you talk to Mark, you know, and then maybe you talk like the Carvin Institute of Government, somebody can help you. Right now, you need to kind of look at everything. We got the policy procedure issues, we got the legal issues, we got the way we do things versus the way it's not written. Are we doing things right? Are we doing things with good segregation duties? You kind of need to get a little wholesale look at everything and say, is there a better way of doing things? And when you decide there's a better way, let's document it. That's the way we do it.
Right,
So there's no question to anybody to know how we do things here at Gore.
exactly.
The rest of this document is really probably more than anybody other than an auditor would care to read. There are a bunch of new standards out there coming out here in the future. Okay, one thing you're going to have this upcoming 9/30/15 audit is you're going to have to recognize your unpaid, unfunded pension plan. Okay, in the past it's always been just footnote information. The one beautiful thing I will say is you all are very well funded. Your planning. Okay, you've got about a 90% funded. There are places out there. You ever heard of Detroit, Michigan? You ever heard of Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta? A lot of these big communities are having real big problems all across the country where they're like 30 and 40% funded. A lot of small communities are having problems with it. Gore, Georgia is approximately 90% funded. That's a thumbs up. Anybody in this room to hear? Y'all are in good shape with your pension plan, but that 10%, will now be on your balance sheet at 9/30/15 at the entity-wide level, not the general fund. But when we look at your statements this year, there's gonna be a little change. It's gonna be called a restatement or a new principle of accounting that you all will have to adopt. That's about the biggest thing out there. There are a bunch of things coming out in the future. Some will affect you all, some won't. But for anybody who really loves this kind of stuff, this is good reading. So, again, page 34, I just want to make sure you always know that we do quarterly CPE for our clients. And this gives you an example on page 34 of some of the things we've taught over the last few years. And anybody is welcome to attend that's in here at the city, whether it's the governing board members or management or department heads. If there's ever a subject that you all think that you would like us to teach, let us know. It's pertinent to you all. I bet it's pertinent to a lot of people. So,
Let me ask you this, I know you saying this is what you offer, will you come here to do it, or?
typically, we try to have it in just various
I
locations.
would like my staff to.
In the Atlanta area, we always go to different client facilities. It might be Atlanta Public Schools this week, DeKalb County next month. In Macon, we pretty much go use the Hutchins Career Center over there on Riverside Drive, and the Dip County Board of Education has been kind enough to make that offer to us. Considering it's only 20 minutes, 25 minutes from here, Interview Drive. It's not that far away, but it is free. We try to do it quarterly, not always, it's not every quarter, but we try to do it quarterly. We try to find a topic that's pertinent to all of our clients. So,
I'm sure it'll be something here that we can find that we can take a look at it.
but that summarizes everything. I know that's a lot of information, and if you all need to talk to me, visit me again, I'll be happy to do so.
Just one question, Coach. I noticed probably some of them. I'm sure you probably noticed is, you going through and looking at, say, our tax digest and all for the city and for the county. I try to impress on everybody, we've lost $1 million a year for the last, 5 to 6 years off of our tax digest because of just dilapidated property. People moving out, nobody living there, and it goes down. Everybody talks about the blight. Well, if we lose, $1 million in 1 year's time, and we stay at the same millage rate, 4.572, we're going in the hole on our revenue, see?
And that's why you've been eating in that fund balance over there.
That's right. And I've been trying to get everybody's attention to, try to get them, it's a process you have to go through to raise your taxes, And you have to start a month or two ahead of time with the county tax director and all, so.
No, you heard me say to several things tonight that I don't envy elected officials. One of them is
Raising
having to raise
taxes.
taxes. And, what you all have been through the last few years, there's been some communities that have had it really hard. I remember one year when I ordered Henry County, their assessed values went down about 35% in 1 year. Okay, that was tremendous. Now, we're not having that here. We haven't had it in Macon, Georgia either. But it is something that's been a problem the last few years. The recession, values have been going down, but the people want the service. And so your unenvious task is having to find a way of making that happen to the satisfaction of all constituents.
Did you notice how the loss has failed continuously pretty much too? We used to get 45, going back maybe even before you audited us, but I was seeing, we used to get maybe $45,000 a month out of the loss, We sometimes only get 21 or 22. Lost is like our paycheck, the city's paycheck, see? We only get 3 big checks a year, and then every month we have the law and the tax and the things that come in monthly that we depend on paying our payroll, and our bills with.
Yep.
And so everything has been falling. That's the reason we're hitting our Georgia One Fund harder and harder,
Yep.
We've already, this year's taken out, $400,000 out of it now, so.
Well, the one thing I'd like to say on that, and this is where I think everybody in this room should appreciate this, is you really gotta thank the people that were here 10 years ago in the government that helped them establish such a good, strong fund balance.
Sure.
I had some clients a few years ago, like in 2006, that they didn't have a good fund balance. And guess what they've got now? 7 or 8 years later, they're having to go get TAN and tax anticipation note. They're scraping the bottom, they had cut services galore. Fortunately, you all had the foresight to maintain a good, strong financial position, and it really helped you all weather the storm that the entire world has been through the last few years. And hats off to everybody who was involved in that process many years ago to help you all be in the position you are today. And of course, your challenge is how can we Do the
stop
same.
that
Do the
bleeding.
same.
We
That's right.
got to
That's right.
stop the bleeding. We want to keep that reserve,
Yep.
but we got to do something about it. Actually, if you count the money that we took out of the CD, and we converted the CD back to one Georgia fund, that CD had made $135,000. We only moved the 2 million, we kept 135, we put it in the general fund. So if you count that, we're over $500,000 of revenues that, came out of reserve funds this year.
So again, you still had a good year,
Yeah,
and you did better than you originally were thinking. Your budget, I think you all thought you were gonna spend over 300,000 reserve, you only spent up 144,000.
That was the 13, 14.
Right, 13, 14, yeah, I guess I'm not thinking right this moment.
Right.
But again, y'all handled this pretty well. The trick is just staying on top of it and seeing if you can replicate what was done years ago to reestablish that strong position that's even stronger than it is today. I mean, you're in good shape today.
See, we're getting back, see, we lost 1 or 2 employees, by retirement and, right. So those build up some value, right, if you don't replace them.
You're right.
And so that's where a lot of that fund came from, because we were not paying out, the funds for the salaries and the pension funds and the insurance. We pay all insurance on our employees,
And that gets back to, again, using the budget as a tool. I've had a lot of clients that had to do those very kind of things. They will, be looking at, they might have positions budgeted, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, revenues aren't quite what we thought they were gonna be. Let's amend the budget so that we don't fill those positions.
So
Sometimes
that's
it
not a
takes that
problem.
kind of action.
So as you, excuse me, so as you said, that's just a good thing that we need to consider.
Just consider,
Okay.
again, I'm sure you don't go home with your family and say, okay, we've got to amend our budget this month. But, here we've got a pretty good amount of money running through here, and you got a lot of dynamics going on. It's just something to think about. And I'm not saying do it monthly.
Right.
I'm just saying just at least maybe once a year, mid-year cycle.
And one other thing, if you noticed, if you, paid attention as you're going through, we have what we call trash collection. It's collected under water and sewer fund, but it is not a water and sewer expense or revenue. So at some point in time, the city is supposed to take that the trash collection money and put it back in the general fund. When it goes into the water and sewer fund, we have to continually use that money because we do not have the money in the water and sewer fund. So we've not been able to transfer. It's supposed to be around $90,000, but we only collect $90,000. So we're only collecting $8.50 per household, and we're paying out the contractor almost the same amount.
So how long has that been going on?
Since 2010. Last time we went up on the trash, it was 2010, it's $8.50 for in-city, $10 for outside the city limits.
That's per month.
Per month on our collection.
That's a real good deal considering what I have.
Certainly. I'm throwing all these numbers out so people can listen and hear what's going on and where we need to be,
Well, that being, we'll start with, Councilman Densley. Do you have any questions for the auditor?
You think it'd be feasible to just go ahead and raise taxes?
Oh, I wouldn't answer that question. You heard me say I'm not envious of y'all's position. This is one of those things I think you gotta really look at. I think part of that whole idea is, and I think everybody on here can appreciate this, you've been to GMA meetings, I guarantee they talk about this, is having a mission. Looking 5 years out, where do we wanna be? What are our initiatives that we need to do? How proactive are we gonna be with these initiatives? And, I hear good things like tonight about the festivals and things y'all got going through town. Really sounds like a delightful place. Well, if you want to continue to be pushing the initiatives and being a place, a destination, look 5 years out and decide what you want to do. You can't really budget that and make that decision based on 1 year. And since I haven't looked 5 years out, I can't really answer your question. But I do think it's one of those things y'all work with management and y'all come up with a plan to see
Say
what
we
do
hadn't raised taxes in 10 years, and if we keep on waiting, that's gonna mean we have to go that much higher.
It could. You're absolutely right. Same thing true with water sewer rates, things like that. You've got to always be looking at them. Because I'll tell you, nothing's more politically incorrect than all of a sudden saying, you know what, in 10 years, we're going to take rates up 30%.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy, now, that's tough to think about handling. So try to look at it annually and decide what we need to do, if we stay flat. And
So I'm saying if we gotta do it, we need to go ahead and do something.
Everybody wants to get rid of it.
Yeah, 30% don't do it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman, did you have any other questions?
We'll take it back.
Smallwood. Anything like Councilwoman Toad. Whipple, Councilwoman Whipple.
Are you saying right now the city is really in good shape?
At 9/30/14, y'all look very good. Really
Okay,
good.
look very good.
Okay, so we really got money.
Again, y'all got 16 to 17 months worth of reserves in cash. There, to help you all move forward. The trick is, again, is being careful about how much you dip in and use those reserves. You know, you want to reestablish them as much as possible. That's just good old fashioned fiscal accountability and everybody working together to try to make things happen the right way.
Councilman,
Not have anything.
all right,
I got something I want to bring up. Auditor gets through. I have some questions, Mayor, 3 quick questions. Mr. Edwards, this is a matter of legal due diligence and concerns of the citizens. There's been a lot of discussion that there may be a large sum of money that has gone missing from the city to the tune of $1 million or so. Did you find any evidence of that, Your Honor?
I would rather not answer your question like we're in a court of law. I would tell you that if we found anything that was of trouble to us, we would have told you about it today.
And did you find any misappropriations or anything like that?
Same thing as before. If we had any issues, I guarantee you I would have told you.
And there is one issue in your audit about payment to the previous forensic auditor. How was that accounted for?
How was that accounted for? There's no liability on the books for it. The amounts were paid. There's been no action taken. Here we are now, 11 months after year end, and that amount still has not been recouped, if it's gonna get recouped. So as far as we're concerned, it's gone.
that being said, council, I would now entertain a motion that we now adjourn.
Mayor, I got something on hand. That won't take 2 or 3 minutes.
All right. Is this a deal?
That'll be a copy. We'll look at this address on this. Pay real close attention to it. And I got one question. Everybody had a chance to look at it. I just want to ask the mayor. Is this a true statement?
You have what you have before you, I'm not going to answer that. Okay.
If you don't want to answer it, you lied to the court.
I have not done anything to the
You
court.
didn't lie.
This is not here for this
You
discussion.
didn't lie.
Excuse me.
Get up out of your seat right
This,
now.
this
Because
is
you're
not
a
up for
resident of
discussion. This is not up for discussion.
We're discussing it.
No, this is not up for
You
discussion.
don't rule everything, dear.
This is council, this is personal, and this is not up for discussion.
This is not personal. If you don't live in Gordon, you cannot be the mayor of Gordon.
This is
And
not
this
up for
says you
discussion.
live in Jonesboro, Georgia.
This is not up for discussion.
Yes, it is.
This is
We'll
not
call,
up for
we'll call the
discussion.
judge in, Blaine County.
Do as you see
Right.
fit.
Whatever.
If that being all, council, there being no further discussion, do I have can I get a recommendation?
Mayor, I think there's some.
No, I don't have any agenda items. I've had them, I stated previously that I've not had a chance to look at that. I set the agenda before I left to go to Jekyll Island, and I stated that I'm not going to address that tonight until I had it removed. And I- No, this is not up for a vote. The meeting, can I get a recommendation that
I
we
say
have
we
to?
discuss it.
One thing, Madam Mayor, the auditor has asked that we, make a motion that we accept his proposal that he presented to us tonight, and I make that motion.
Right, and I second it. Motion has been made in second, all in favor?
To accept the audit?
And, we get with you with the report on that. All right.
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
It's mine.
I'll be at the, meeting be adjourned until
It will be a holiday, September, the first Monday. So would y'all like to schedule it for the second, for the Tuesday following? What day?
Y'all didn't vote on the motion second,
Which one?
to accept the audit.
That would be,
I didn't hear you.
Councilman
Councilman
Edie.
Edie made the motion.
I made the
I heard
motion.
the
And she
motion
said-
second, but I didn't hear everybody
We
vote.
didn't vote
Councilman
on it.
Whipple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Y'all,
and everybody said, all in favor? At
Aye.
least you all said it again. Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, so the motion has been made to adjourn and second.
yeah, who made that? I was talking about the audit.
We got finished with that.
If they vote on the audit,
Right,
that's what I was asking, or now, what you're saying now, to adjourn.
yes.
All right, and who made the motion second?
Councilwoman Whipple.
Seconded by.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor?
I just can't hear everybody. Has everybody voted to adjourn yet?
I vote. It was three of us.
Takes four.
Did everybody vote to adjourn?
No.
No, I didn't vote.
No, you have not voted?
I have not voted to adjourn.
It was told. Yes.
3 ayes. Okay.
And three.
Cole, Whipple, and Dinsley voted yes.
Three. So one copy.
Okay, how are you voting?
Adjourn.
We didn't vote at all yet. We hadn't voted to anything. We just did not vote.
We just did.
No, she
Councilman
didn't. No, you did not ask any no vote, whatever you wanna ask, the way you
I
asked
asked
it.
all, well, I'll ask all opposed.
All opposed? I abstain. I oppose.
I vote no.
And Mr. Dinsley.
What are we voting on?
You voted to abstain earlier. You voted to adjourn earlier.
There was some items we wanted to talk
You
about.
voted to adjourn earlier. So that takes care of that. We've already voted to adjourn.
That's not what that vote was.
Meeting is over.
No, it's not,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
No.
What you running from?
Open meetings.
Meeting
That
is
is not a
over.
valid vote.
No.
And there are council agenda items that the council did not vote to terminate or not to discuss. You said they wouldn't be discussed, but it was a publicly posted notice that has to be amended by the council, or else it will be an open meetings violation.
Let me say this, Attorney Green. What has happened is that, as I stated earlier, and hear me good, as the mayor, I get to set the agenda. Nothing, if that was the case, I should have been called and told, that this would take place. I've not had chance to review anything or don't have anything to that effect. I'm not opposed to whatever you all are offering, but I've not had that information presented to me.
It was sent to city, back to City Hall.
I didn't receive it.
I put it in everybody's boxes, and we had the agenda before you left
I've
for your
been-
You
meeting.
said it was sent Thursday.
Right. Thursday, we were out of town.
Y'all had the agenda before y'all left here.
Living in Jonesboro?
No,
We didn't have the agenda.
we would not entertain that.
It was all there prior to everybody.
The agenda came in the mail on Saturday.
Good.
Y'all got it. before the meeting.
It came in on Saturday, the agenda came in.
Everybody else had theirs.
So we didn't, I didn't.
You got yours there.
And I still don't have it.
It was up on your little mailbox.
have not been announced.
You need to go check your mail, Mayor. I mean, that's the place where I put all your mail in.
And I'm not saying that you don't, but like I said, that is not. All right, so, as stated that we'll address that at a later, at the next meeting. Thank you. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Nope.
Yep. Yep.
Madam Mayor, I do not think the, meeting has been legally voted on to adjourn.
We,
I know with an abstention and no votes, it did not come to a tie any kind of way.
no, it did not come to a tie, but in the event, when there's an abstention according to the charter, that vote.
Go by the Robert's Rules of Order, and it does not count yes or no.
We